Good morning and welcome to DJF Live. This is episode 117, and on today's show we're going to take a look at what is new in Companion 4.1.1. It's really a 4.1 look, but last night they came out with 4.1.1, so we'll take a look at that, and there's an opportunity here for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat, or if you're watching after the show, drop them in the comments, and I'd love to follow up with that. But I mean, Companion's had a ton of upgrades over the years, and it's really exciting to see it continue to grow and all that it can do, and the user interface and the power behind it. So 4.1 is another step forward in this direction. So let's kick off and take a look at Companion 4.1.1. There is a link in the description if you want to jump into that. But what you're going to want is to get over to bitfocus.io, and to the downloads page, you'll see 4.1 is for Linux, Apple, Silicon, Intel, or Windows, and you can download that. Just if you're wondering, also you can always click on this history button here, and you'll see the latest betas that are coming in. So 4.2 will be the next one, and then you can see previous versions of the stable. So if for some reason it wasn't working, then you could drop back versions this way, and there's all the versions over here that you can click on. So go and grab that, and then you will jump over and you'll open up something like this in Companion. One thing that is new, I guess, or is coming, is that this is the last version that will support macOS 11. So if you're on that, just bear that in mind if you are going to upgrade at some point to Companion 4.2. So you're going to need to run macOS 12 or later. Hopefully not too much of a problem unless you're running probably a really old Mac. Otherwise, I think I'm at version 15, I think, on the current one. But just bear that in mind. All right, next thing is, there's been a bunch of UI improvements. So this is releases focusing on polishing the UI. That is, if you haven't looked at it for a while, like a lot of these menu items used to be along horizontally here. Now all that kind of menu tabulation has moved to the side, and you can scroll here and expand out here. So if you're looking for something, chances are it's all the way down here. So bear that in mind. And if you're wanting to get started, you can always click on what's new, and that will show you what is new in this each version here, going back to 3.4. And I've been working through each of these as they've come out. So 4.1 is the one we're doing today. So as you can see here, it is one thing is collections. So previously you'd create a connection to a piece of equipment, and that would be like a connection item in here. And the problem is, if you have lots of them, then it gets harder to organize. Now you can actually customize, like dragging them around in a list, whereas before they were a bit more scattered, sort of Companion 2 and 3. But now we've also got this ability to create a collection, and then you can put them into folders essentially. And you can also turn off and on folders on the sort of root level of that. So if it's ungrouped, they'll be down the bottom here. And otherwise you can see, for example, I've got my ATEM connection, and you can sort of minimize this. So this can just help clean up your organization if you've got a lot of things in there. So for example, I've got a lot of Casa switches here that I use to control Studio. Don't really need to look at them. And so I can close that down, and I might want to just focus on this DJF Live of all my things that I use to run the show, and things like the PTZ and ATEM. If I turn off on the group level here, you'll see it's actually turned off all of my cameras, but it still remembers that I've got cameras 1 and 2 enabled here. So next time when I turn on the group layer, those cameras come back online, which is good because that's what we're looking at here. And if you go into buttons and create a button, you can add an action to collection. You can trigger, enable or disable a connection collection, and you can enable or disable a trigger collection. So I had this one, for example, and then remember I had my PTZs, and I could toggle it or turn it on and off. So that's a way to just, like maybe you're shutting down a studio at the end of the day or something like that, or you're changing shows and you just want to like turn off a whole bunch of connections, then you can do that in one hit, and also create a button I'm just going to delete that one. Or else if you go over to triggers, you can again create collections. So here I've got my auto show collection, which has triggers in here that I have to automate. You can see down here, like automatically trigger the show. So at 5:02, it starts the pre-roll, and then at on the top of the hour, it starts the show. So I don't have to do anything. I just, as I tried today, I just walked out, got a cup of water because my voice was not feeling great, and the show was running for me in the background. So now I can group all that into collections and also turn that on or off. And I'm going to jump forward on that one. What else is collections? Also with variables, you can also create, if I go custom variables, you can create collections and put variables into a collection to sort of organize them that way. So just keep that in mind. The other change here is that the list of surfaces has been reworked into a table layout rather than the sort of pop-up light box that it had before. So this is improving clarity and flow on surfaces. If you click on surfaces, now it's a bit more like, you know, when you click on connections, you then select a connection, and then over here you make your changes. Same thing with surfaces, click on surfaces, and then you can click on an emulator or something and make the adjustments. So I think this is good. It's a bit faster to move around. Previously, it was like this list and you'd click on it and then there'd be a light box that would pop up. And if you were trying to like jump in and out of ones, it was a lot of mousing around to close a window down and select something. So this is better and faster, particularly because I think it's a little busier now, this layout, which is sort of good and sort of not, because all this like subtext is now in here, which makes it easy to skim through and sort of see a whole lot of things. And you can always click on a copy icon here in terms of like copying the emulator string here. So that makes it easier and faster to move around, I would say. All right, next up, let's take a look at local variables. So on each button or trigger, you can now define local variables rather than global ones. So these are scoped just to that single button or trigger. They don't exist outside of it. So it works like custom variables, and they have a static value or can be changed by actions, and they can be expression driven and can be evaluated when needed, and it can also take the value of a feedback. So if I go to, where's a good page to put things on? I think I've got a space here. If I create a button, you'll see on the side here, it says local variables. So now I can add in like a user value, and I could call, you could even just, I'm trying to think of examples to show you, and it's like, you could even have it as a step progression. So you could just type in step, and maybe the startup value, you persist, and it's 1. And then on the feedbacks, you could go check value, and if you go step, you'll see local step is in here. And you could say if it equals 1, it's going to go red. And I'll get to this in a bit, but this is where you can also in step progression turn on expression. So then you could go, I don't even know what is step, step. Maybe I can't put it in there, this step. What is the code here? Step, local step, it should be local step. Local step, maybe it doesn't work in this field. Interesting. So if I go a new step and then select 1 or 2, okay, maybe that one doesn't work, but my idea was that you could select a local variable and then use it in the step progression as a variable. Maybe I've got that wrong. I'll have to look into that. But that's where local variables is. And the thing about that is if you create something locally, it's contained. So you could get that button and copy and paste it. And then that new secondary button is sort of independent of the first button. So you can sort of work within little pools. I was trying to think of an example, and maybe it's more like, on my, I don't know if you use Capture One or any sort of photo software, but you can have like smart albums and have conditions of like any photograph 3-star plus. And if you have that album at the root level, it's going to show you all the photos in your collection that have 3 stars plus. Whereas if you move that smart album into a project, then it just shows you from that shoot photos out of 3 stars. So it's kind of like that with these local variables, that it's containing it just to that button rather than being able to use more globally. So I think there's a place for that. All right, expression variables page. So now you can build more complex configurations and transform the data flowing in or out of connections, and they allow you to normalize, combine, or conditionally modify values before they're consumed or sent. These can be referenced whenever connection or custom variables are accepted, and the values calculated from the expression you provide. So I was trying to think of an example to show you here. It's under, go back to, so under variables, you'll have expression variables. And so one example is the way I run my show. For example, you'll see down here, I'm pulling data from an Excel spreadsheet, which is showing me that the thing I'm going to press is pulled from this row in a spreadsheet, and it says custom backup rules. So that's what we're going to talk about next. But if I wanted to look at the next line in a spreadsheet, let me go to over here. I can pull this in to show you. So this is how I run my show. And for example, we are on line 10 at the moment. But just say I wanted to build something where I could look ahead to line 11. Then I could use an expression variable to do that. So under buttons, I could create this. So this code here is the text which is pulling from the Google Sheets module, spreadsheet 0, or like a workbook 0, I guess. And then the sheet name is list. And you'll see over here, I have list, but I got multiple lists, 1, 2, and 3. And so this is saying list, and then this custom variable is a number, which at the moment is going to be 1. So it's going to say on sheet list 1, and then it's going to reference column A, and then this is another number. So what I need is to calculate this variable, basically to go, like I want to go custom sheet list row, which at the moment equals 10 is what I can see down here. And I really want to go like +1, but that's not going to work in that regard. So what I can do instead is go into expression variables, and you can just go add expression variable like this. It'll pop up like this. Here's one I have pre-filled. So I'll give it a name, which will be the slug that I then reference later. So I'm talking about my sheet list, and then I'm saying row next is just how I've put that down. Any description you want. And then the expression I've pulled is that custom variable +1. And you can see that down here it's saying list 10. So I'm currently sitting, so custom backup rules, what we're going to look at next is row 10. But you can see that because I put in the +1, so if I delete this, then it's just returning a value of 10. But if I go +1, oops, equals 1, let's go +1. Now it equals 11. And now what I can do is copy that expression sheet list row next, come back into the buttons, and this was the one that I had before that didn't work with this +1. And so I'm wanting to replace this with my expression. And now you can see that it is showing various UX improvements. And if I jump over to the sheet, you'll see that in 11A, it says A11 is various UX improvements. So that's one way to use an expression, sort of do some calculation on it beforehand and then insert it somewhere else. Yeah. All right, next up, let's take a look. There is custom backup rules. This is really neat because a lot of applications have this. We haven't had this to now. It's going to be a manual backup. And so now you can have Companion do a custom backup, allowing you to schedule them and to keep and restore points, and to keep them in more points that you could restore later. So for example, you could set it to save to a Dropbox folder location, and then you'll have offsite backups available, and you can set the cadence of that. So it just means that particularly if you're working in a team and you come in and someone's made some weird changes, then you might want to save for that, or even just protecting against yourself. So if you come not into import export, you would think it would be in there, but it is in settings under backups, and there'll be a default one in there, which is pretty much good to use. You just need to turn it on to enable the cadence. Daily backup is the name. I'll click right now in a second, but so you can either set it to a cron schedule, and there's a helpful link here if you wanted to click through and sort of adjust the sort of hour, minute, day, month, that kind of cadence, and then you could copy the number there and paste it back into here, but I'll just stick with midnight for now. You can either back up raw database. I'm usually backing up just a compressed default one. That's all I've ever really needed. And then the backup path, if you are on a Mac, I don't know what you do if you're on Windows, but if you're on a Mac, I'll just choose desktop, or I guess you could choose like Dropbox or something. But if you right click on a folder and then hold Option, you can say copy desktop as path name, and then in here you can paste that. So I'm just /users DJF desktop is where that's going to be saved to. And then the backup name pattern, this is great because it'll pull in variables, so you can keep track of the date and the time. If I can scroll through here, hours and minutes, or whatever you want to put it in. This is my mini, so like my Mac Mini M4, so I could just call it mini backup, something like that. And then however many backups you want to keep. And if it's on, it'll just run on this schedule at midnight, but you can also click run now. So we can see in desktop, there's nothing in there. If I click run now, doesn't have permission. I don't know why I would have, oh, I'm on the wrong computer. All right, let's pull over. I'm just gonna pull up my actual Mac Mini on screen share. Oops, wrong one, okay. Let's go to display one. Oops, what am I doing here? Let's zoom out. And I think I've got too many displays up here. 1, 2, and 3. I don't know what that one is. Hang on a second. Ugh. I'm just gonna close that down and open it up again. And hopefully, hang on, I'm gonna bring this over. Is this gonna work? Where am I? Bring that over to, oh man, my mouse. All right, I'm just gonna exit out of this. This should be on, I think it's mini. I'm on my laptop here, so it's a different computer. So if I go run now, success. Okay, so it's put it on the other computer. My screen share is being a bit funny, so I could go to mini desktop, and you can see here is the desktop of the mini, and that's the backup there. So obviously just save it to a local, like a folder in Dropbox, and you should be good to go. All right, next up, we've got a lot of things. We've got various user interface improvements, or user experience improvements. I can just jump over to, like I was saying before, if you click on what's new down here, this is just what I'm working through here. Custom backup rules and more. Okay, so we're up to here. So we went through connections, collections, and surfaces, right-hand panels, clarity of beta module versions, and yeah, there's just a whole bunch of small things in here. Improved import page, okay. Improved emulator list page, added expression variables. I feel like we've done all of these things, but if you wanted to scan through, these are some of the sort of smaller things that they have enabled. The next one is there's a new action, which is while loop. I haven't had time to really go through this, so I've been trying to think of an example to show you, but I'll show you what's in there, and then you can probably figure it out for yourself. So if we go to create button, we go press action, and we go logic while loop. So it's basically saying execute some actions repeatedly while all of the configured conditions are true. So you could add in, you know, check a variable of like a custom variable atem or something like that. If that equals 1, then repeat all of these actions. Like I said, I haven't had enough time to think through how I would implement that, but I'm sure there would be people watching this who could tell me in the comments. So if you are watching in the comments after the show or now, then give me some examples of how you're going to implement this new logic, which is while looping, because it looks useful. I just haven't sort of thought of ways in which to use it yet. Next up is that the button step can be driven from an expression, which is sort of what I was showing you before, which didn't seem to work with the local one unless I had something wrong with it. But how can I show this? Oh, so something I've been working on my profiles that will come into some later update is my DJF queue. So when I, let me go down here. When I have my home page, and then I can do my switching, and then I have all my sort of composite scene shots here, and my show page, which is all of the YouTube and the recording and restarting up a show in terms of pre-roll and wrapping a show. And then under this one is usually queue, and but now it says list. And if I press it again, I come into the settings, and I've got this list mode. So I can switch between operating in a queue mode or a list mode is what I'm saying here. So you can see queue, if I'm in the queue mode, I'm sitting on like Q4, whereas in the list mode, it's pulling from the Google Sheets list that I was showing you before, and it's saying I'm on row 14. And this means that as I go back and forth, it's going to update which row is going to be executed. And then I've also been able to implement the list so that when I execute a Google Sheets list function, if that sheet has a number in it, I'll jump over here. So this is pulling basically the header data description, a link if there is one, which is pulled into the chat and the comments, but not put on screen. And then row D is the queues. So these are the actual, I've got 24 queues in my sort of DJF queue thing here. And so if, as I'm working down the show, I'm on list 15, which is here, is that right? Q&A. You'll see here, because this is executing a queue, this is highlighted. Whereas if I go back and I'm on bug fixes here, then it's not executing one of these queues, and so it's not highlighted. So all that to say, in these two list or queue modes, this button now filters through these two variables. Okay, I'll leave it on bug fixes and list mode, make sure I'm on the right one. And we're going to jump back over to here. Where are we? So we're going to variables, custom variables. I've got queue underscore list. So this is my custom, it's called queue underscore list. And I'm saying the values are either 1 or 2 that I'm going to give it. If it's 1, then I'm going to be operating in DJF queue mode, which is like the local queues on Companion. And number 2, if this equals 2, then I'm operating in the Google Sheets mode, which is operating a show off a Google Sheets rundown rather than a Companion one. But remember that the Google Sheets one can also send queues back to my 24 show queues here, like technical queues. All right, and so then how this is implemented is in the secret sauce here. I'll go back to my queue page. Is this button. When I advance it, now you can see the same step progression here. Instead of auto manual, it's on expression. And I've put in this custom variable, queue list. And remember we said it was either 1 or 2. And that's basically steps 1 or 2. So if it's on step 1. So I'm highlighted on step 1, but it's actually step 2 is flashing, meaning this is what's being executed. So I've got all of my, anytime I advance the show using the Google Sheets, I'm using one set of actions on that tab. Or if I switched it over to, let me see if I can go switch it to queue mode, you'll see now this one's flashing, meaning that when I press this button, it's going to be operating on this tab, which is all of my sort of local queues. So that's one way of having a variable, giving it integers of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever, and then whatever that variable equals will execute, or it'll select, and then when you press it, it'll execute that step. But it's not going to advance automatically like it does by default. I'm going to put it back onto list mode. So that's a helpful way of doing it. A couple more things, just bug fixes in terms of exports, PNGs, tooltips, internal actions, supporting expressions, drop-down fields, all that sort of UI stuff. Again, I'll click on what's new, and we have, you can see down here, bug fixes, surface page settings, not being persisted correctly in exports. That would be nice, surface page settings. Hopefully that is, I'll have to test that one out because I was having a problem with that, which was like the surfaces wouldn't remember, wouldn't remember the placement of it, and so you had to go back in and reset all of these surfaces if you brought it back in. So a bunch of bugs that have been fixed there. Alrighty. Well, next up is Q&A. So I'll see who's in the chat. Doesn't look like we've got many questions, so it could be a short one today. We've got Jim from Las Vegas. Looking forward to chatting with you soon. And sounds like your work is going well. So congrats with all of the work that you're doing down there in Vegas. Sounds like you have a fun job flying around and drones and all that. And we've got Jerry in North Dakota. Excellent. All right, well, if we don't have any questions coming through, do we have any questions? Doesn't look like it. Hopefully that was all very self-explanatory. And if you are watching after the live stream has happened, make sure you drop a comment of your user experience of Companion 4.1.1. And I'm going to now go and open up Companion Beta 4.2 to see what is next. As I was saying at the beginning, it's always a bit funny because I'm always working on the betas. Sometimes when the stable version rolls out, I forget what changes. Like I sort of look at this interface and it looks the same because it's what I've been using it for. But I think you get used to these things pretty quickly. It's just like I updated the iPhone last night to the liquid glass one, and I had 5 minutes of like, oh, that's cool. And now I'm already like, okay, it's just like the phone. You know, it's nothing that different about it other than, you know, looking kind of cool and having a few more animations. Alrighty, well, hopefully that was helpful. davidjoshuaford.com is where you can go. That's my website, and has some free profiles to control Canon PTZ cameras and ATEM and all that kind of stuff. Until next week, take care and enjoy your live stream. All right, bye.